Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. My name is Beth Cohen and today we'll be talking about Catalonia's street names. Street names offer a window into every town's history, culture and identity. From the structured Eixample grid in Barcelona to the smallest village in the Pyrenees, street names in Catalonia honour important figures, historical events and places. In this week's podcast, we discover the stories behind some of Catalonia's more interesting street names, find out what locals think, and explore who names the streets and why some names are more popular than others. Joining me to navigate this curious topic are Oriol Escudé and Guifré Jordan. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Beth.
Nice to be here.
Thank you for coming in.
Very exciting topic.
And you've worked hard on this one. But before we get started, I'd like to thank one of our listeners, Eugene, for proposing this topic. It was a great idea.
It was a great idea, but Guifré and I took it to the extreme. And we analyzed literally all Catalan streets.
More than 100,000.
A crazy number. The spreadsheet was absolutely crazy.
Insane. But the good news was this was well structured. You know, the Catalan Cartography Institute had a perfect data set that we just analyzed, and it was absolutely great. And we could have done a podcast or even, a PhD thesis or whatever, because It's insane the amount of information you can get in there.
You data geeks.
But it's really fascinating what we've got.
Wow, absolutely.
So why do we name our streets? And how far back does the tradition go?
So street naming dates back many centuries, and the main reason is obvious. We had the need to identify the places, and that's why many streets bear names that define the street itself, like Main Street, Narrow Street, or Church Street, right? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So you will get names defining that street, defining where the street goes, like Carrer Barcelona, like Barcelona Street in a town. It may be the name of the street leading to Barcelona, if it's a town nearby. So you can get bridges, fountains, crosses, religious references, people, saints, or occupations, which is the one I found more interesting, It's the most interesting for me. So occupations, for instance, in the old quarter of Barcelona, typical ones.
Such as?
Such as, for instance, Carrer de la Palla, Straw Street.
There's another fascinating example, which I really love. It's the Barri del Joier in Gràcia, the jewelers neighborhood. So the Plaça del Diamant, which is a very famous square, and it bears the name from the famous book by Catalan writer Mercè Rodoreda, so Diamond Square. And all around the square, all the streets have names related to metals. So we have Carrer del Topazi, Topaz Square.
Wow, fantastic. I love it.
Gold Square, for example, or Pearl Square, or Ruby Street.
So it's Absolutely. All precious stones and gems. And thinking about these descriptive names about professions and describing where the street goes, I'm guessing that these names just emerged naturally to describe what was there in a completely organic way. And through the street names, we've got a little window into the history of different neighborhoods and what used to happen there. It's really fascinating.
Absolutely. So at one point of history, in the 18th century or so, authorities began to standardize street names to improve, the administration, the urban administration and so on. For instance, and a little bit later, for instance, in Barcelona, it's especially interesting that Barcelona started to absorb other municipalities such as Gràcia. It used to be independent, Gràcia, Sant Martí, Sants, and others. And they realized, now it's all the same municipality, but we have loads of repeated names, like
Carrer de la Iglesia.
Carrer de la Iglesia 6 times. So that's against the policy of standardizing stuff, and making postmen and postwomen work properly, so they have to change some of the names, in some municipalities or in some parts of Barcelona that used to be municipalities.
Yeah, when the villages merged.
It was especially in the 19th century, right? When there began this proper street register that we know of today. They started in the 19th century. And in Barcelona, we had a major turning point in 1859 with Ildefons Cerdà street plan for Barcelona's Eixample district.
And they had to come up with loads of new names, let's say. And it's funny because a lot of people know off the top of their head the order of names. And it's quite easy to remember the order of street names in Barcelona's Eixample district, because they have some logics.
Exactly. And also because there's only horizontal and vertical streets, right?
Who needs Google Maps when you have efficient street planning?
Absolutely.
Okay, so in summary, whilst informal street names have existed in Catalonia since medieval times, formal and systematic naming really began in the 19th century, especially with the expansion of modern Barcelona under the Cerdà plan. And Guifré, whilst we're talking about street names, it's worth mentioning that as well as the name itself, there are also the Catalan words themselves for street, square, avenue, etc. Can you give us a bit of basic Catalan vocabulary to help us understand the street names better?
Absolutely. That's perfect. Easy job, I think. So, carrer is street. Carrer de Pau Claris, for instance. Then you get plaça, which is square. Easy one. Plaça Catalunya, that's Catalonia Square means. And then you have Rambla, actually. Rambla is like a boulevard, but the condition is like it goes to the sea. It's perpendicular to the sea.
There are two others that I really love, and they are super common. One of them is passatge, passage, or alley, I would say in English. Usually are narrow streets. And then we also have travessera, which is especially in Barcelona, it's very common. And it's cross street. So literally a transverse road, a road that crosses, and it's usually horizontal.
And I don't know if you knew, in Barcelona there's a street called Avinguda Paral·lel, which is named after a parallel, like the parallel in a map, this imaginary lines that divide the world, when you see a world map. And it's not only named after a parallel, but it follows a parallel. It's exactly the same line of a parallel. You can check it somewhere, And Avinguda Meridiana is the same with a meridian. So Avinguda Meridiana is telling you exactly where the world meridian, or where one of the world's meridian, not the Greenwich one, but one is going through Barcelona. So it's telling you exactly north and south.
That's amazing.
And I think we should also mention it's so famous and so popular, but Diagonal is called Diagonal because it cuts a diagonal line across Barcelona. And if you see Barcelona from the air, you're like, oh yeah, that's the Diagonal.
That's correct.
We took to the streets of Barcelona to find out what people think of the names of the streets where they live. Let's hear those interviews.
If I had to pick one place in Barcelona to test people's knowledge of street names, it had to be the Eixample district. The area was designed with a great layout, and the street names were carefully chosen. You can actually use them to get your bearings, and there are tricks to remember them. Many of the city's most famous streets are here, so it felt like the perfect spot for a quiz. But it didn't take long to realize most people don't really know where their street names come from.
Des Comte Borrell i l'origen no me'l sé.
I live on Comte Borrell, but I don't know the origin of the name. I've honestly never thought about it.
Carrer Comte Borrell, però de bon bé el carrer no ho sé.
I live on Comte Borrell. I don't really know where the street name comes from. I just know it was named after a count.
Miriam and Rosa both live on Carrer del Comte Borrell, but they don't really know who he was. The street is one of the most famous in the Sant Antoni neighborhood, and is named after Borrell II, Count of Barcelona from 947 to 992.
El meu carrer és Florida Blanca, però l'origen no el conec.
I live on Florida Blanca Street, but I don't know where the name comes from.
Florida Blanca, where Carlos lives, takes its name from José Moñino y Redondo, the Count of Florida Blanca. He's widely regarded as one of the most effective Spanish statesmen of the 18th century. He created Spain's first population census.
Abans vivia a Viladomat, i Viladomat, si no recordo malament, era un escultor.
I used to live on Viladomat Street, and if I remember correctly, it was named after a sculptor.
Carlos perfectly illustrates a common confusion about street names. He believes Viladomat is named after sculptor Josep Viladomat, but in reality, it honors the painter Antoni Viladomat, who lived 2 centuries earlier.
Carrer Murillo va ser un pintor, però no sé més.
I live on Carrer de Murillo. I know he was a painter, but I don't know much more than that.
Julia's right. Murillo was a famous painter from the 17th century. Although not very well known today, there are actually over 40 streets across Catalonia named after him. It's clear now it's easy to find a street named after a man, but after a woman?
No el sé.
No, I don't know any.
Tots els que em venen són neutres ara mateix.
All the ones I can think of are named after people. No, I can't think of any right now.
Home, un carrer d'home pot ser l'Avinguda Gaudí.
A street named after a man could be Avinguda Gaudí, and one named after a woman. Now that I think about it, I can't remember her name. She did a lot for the Catalan language and was a teacher. Well, I can't think of it right now.
No, diria que no. Bueno, carrer Marie Curie em sona.
No, I can't think of any. Well, actually, Marie Curie Street does ring a bell.
Women's names are hard to come by since they are underrepresented on our streets. Carles is referring to Catalan educator Rosa Sensat, and Julia mentions Marie Curie. The Polish-French physicist is in fact one of the most honored women in Catalan street names. Another question I liked to ask was whether they had a favorite street. Most didn't, but Rosa did, and it's tied to memories from her childhood.
Jo, Roger de Llúria.
My favorite street name is Roger de Llúria. When I was younger, the double L sound in Llúria was tricky for me. That's why it's a street name I really like, Roger de Llúria.
Now it was time to let them play. Which street name would you put if you could choose?
El Jordi Pujol. És que jo considero que ha fet molt.
I would dedicate a street to Jordi Pujol, the former Catalan president. I think he did a lot for Catalonia, for our democracy.
Igual posaria el nom del meu esport, que ningú el coneix, que es diu Corbal.
Maybe I'd name a street after my sport, korfball, which not many people know.
Carrer Corbal.
Ha sigut mare fa poc, jo li posaria el nom del meu fill, sincerament, Pau.
I recently became a mother and I would name a street after my son, Pau. Peace in Catalan. I really like the meaning of his name.
Thank you to all the residents who spoke with us and to you, Oriol, for that fascinating report.
It's interesting because half of Catalonia streets are unique names. So half of them only have one street with that name.
In the whole of Catalonia?
In the whole of Catalonia.
Come on, say your favorite.
My favorite is in Palafrugell, in the coast, and it's al carrer de l'àvia catalana, the street of the Catalan granny.
Oh, that's
fantastic.
so sweet.
I'm going to move there, I think. But some others are very typical, like the most common one is Carrer Major. You'll find a Major street, like Main Street, I'd say in English.
In every town.
1,300 main streets in Catalonia.
Absolutely.
Then we have Church Street, which also makes sense.
Carrer de la Iglesia.
And the third is Catalunya, Carrer or Plaça Catalunya. That's the third reference.
And then the next ones are descriptions, as we mentioned at the beginning. Font i Nou, Fountain Street or Fountain Square, and New Square or New Street. And there are many, many streets named like this.
And one interesting thing also is that some streets are named after people, famous people. The most important one being Pau Casals.
Oh, there are so many Pau Casals streets.
Yeah.
A lot of Pau Casals streets. This super internationally famed cellist, and musician.
If we look at men, we have on the second position Jacint Verdaguer, the writer, with many streets as well. And there's also people like the former Catalan president Lluís Companys in third position, or Pompeu Fabra, the grammarian who did a very important work for the Catalan language, Joan Maragall, he was a poet, and we have Antoni Gaudí, the architect.
Interestingly, there are loads more of street names dedicated to men than to women.
We have got the figure, and it's astonishing, it's mind-blowing. Looking at the first 500 most popular names in Catalan streets, there are 72 men and 37 male saints versus 9 women and 14 female saints.
Ouch.
So 83% of the street names dedicated to a person, whether it's a saint or not, 83% are related to men and the rest are dedicated to women. And if we look at the absolute numbers, we have over 10,000 streets dedicated to men, whether saints or not, and only 1,500 dedicated to women or female saints.
Well, that's a trend that's been reversed in recent years because people are changing street names and trying to reflect in the street nomenclature a more diverse society.
Absolutely, yeah.
Another in international names.
Absolutely. The most common one by far is Dr. Fleming, the discoverer of penicillin.
We also have Columbus.
It's international? Come on, he was Catalan. That's clearly.
Maybe one day we can prove that he was Catalan,
Hopefully.
but right now he's international.
Absolutely, yeah, that's clear.
He's got a name on many streets as well. And Marie Curie as well, a woman on the third position
Absolutely.
within internationals.
Absolutely. Beethoven, also the fourth. Salvador Allende, fifth. So there are quite a lot.
A lot of composers I see, because we have Mozart as well. Quite a few streets I get to Mozart, Wagner, and also philosophers, right? There's Socrates, Seneca.
And Maria Montessori, this educator who founded the Montessori method.
Exactly. Very popular as well among streets.
And we also have street names dedicated to cities, to countries, and to counties.
Absolutely. So in terms of countries, so Catalonia is like the most common place. That's clear. After Spain, Andorra, France, Portugal, and Italy. So we're following a little bit the order of proximity, let's say.
Our neighbors. But it's interesting because there are 600 names dedicated to Catalonia and only 73 to Spain. So the difference is huge.
Huge, absolutely huge. Interestingly, there are some Mexico and Argentina. There's historically been loads of links to these countries.
And we finish the top 10 with Luxembourg and Belgium. Then we have cities as well. And again, Barcelona, of course, is the first one. Lleida, surprisingly, is the second one, followed by Girona and Tarragona, the 4 capitals of province in Catalonia. And then we have our neighbors in Valencia, Figueras as well.
Big Manresa, Reus, or Ibiza. And in terms of counties, you have Empordà.
More lovely than Ibiza, I would say.
Absolutely. Sardanya, in the Pyrenees. Maresma in the coast, in Central Coast. Priorat, very famous wine-growing region in Catalonia. So loads of counties.
And speaking of Empordà, we have street names based on winds, don't we?
We do. And in fact, the most popular wind is Tramuntana. There are over 200 streets dedicated to this wind. And in fact, they're very popular in, of course, l'Empordà.
Yes, we have a Carrer Tramuntana in our village. And it's actually, we need to walk down sometimes.
No surprise that the Tramuntana is like the top one because it's one of the strongest winds in Catalonia.
What other winds feature?
The second one is Llevant, the one coming from the sea, the one coming from the east. And the third, Garbí, coming from the southwest. And the fourth, Mestral, coming from the northwest.
I love it. It's so interesting because if you look at where these streets are, they're usually in places where there's a lot of this wind there.
It all makes sense. In street names, when you start checking street names, it all makes sense.
Absolutely.
For instance, Viña, which is vine in English, is the second top name of plant or flower in Catalonia because we have loads, especially in the Penedès and other regions. The first one is not, though. The first one is Rosé, which is rose bush.
We also have rosemary on the third position, which I think it's something very common in Europe. There's a lot of rosemary streets everywhere.
Well, because it grows everywhere, just wild.
Exactly. Then on the fourth position, we have my favorite one, which is Ginesta. It's Scotch broom.
Beautiful yellow flower.
A nice, really, really nice smell.
Yes, I had a Ginesta bush and my dog dug it up when he was a puppy.
So no Ginesta street in your village.
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. Right, and in terms of trees, Pi is the most common one. Pine tree, you can find pine trees everywhere in Catalonia. Alzina is the second one, holm oak in English, Roura, and normal oak. Or Olivera, an olive tree, is the fourth one.
Just the fact that we make a distinction between oak and holm oak, it tells you a lot about how many oaks
there are.
We have here.
You're right.
And we have, for example, almond tree as well a lot, or mulberry tree.
Okay, so we've talked about trees and plants. What about animals?
So there are a lot of streets named after animals, but interestingly, most of them are birds. For example, the first one is the rossinyol, the nightingale. Beautiful word and beautiful bird, and we have loads of streets dedicated to it. There's also the oraneta, the swallow, or partridge, the perdiu. And after many, many birds, there's only 2 mammals, the squirrel and the hare.
Oh, I'd love to live on Squirrel Street.
Yeah. Esquirol.
To find out more about Barcelona's street nomenclature, we spoke with Miquel Parella, head of toponymy at the Catalan Institute of Cartography and Geology. Let's hear that interview.
Sí, de fet, el nomenclator de carrers és...
Keeping a register of street names is a notarial act of national significance. By conducting a thorough study of these names, who they are dedicated to and how they were created, we define ourselves as a nation and as a people.
L'origen dels noms dels vials és natural, és espontani.
The origin of street names is natural and spontaneous. It dates back centuries and comes from the need to describe and identify your surroundings. Descriptive names like Main Street, Main Square, Bridge Street, Broad Street, Narrow Street, they're usually found in historic centres and old town areas. These were the original names. Later on, with urban expansion, there came the need for new street names, names that no longer came spontaneously from the local people. Instead, it was the town councils and local authorities that assigned those names.
Sí, de fet, si féssim l'estadística, feta l'estadística.
In fact, the most common street names aren't those honouring famous people, as many assume. They're usually descriptive of the urban layout or the local geography, like Hill Street or River Walk.
És a dir, el nomenclator, en aquest cas sí, dedicat a noms de persones, majoritàriament és dedicat a homes.
Most street names dedicated to people honour men, since historically notable figures recognised in science, literature, royalty or the military were mostly men. In recent years, local councils have become more aware of this and often rename some streets to honour women or dedicate new streets to them. This is helping balance things, but the gap remains large. Street names reflect the society that created them. For example, streets named after saints in old town centres, like Sant Roc or Sant Antoni, are now rarely approved. Instead, newer names appear, like Olympic Volunteers Street, John Lennon Street, or even Ayrton Senna Street. Street names reflect the values of their time.
I pel que fa a temes pròpiament lingüístics lligats als noms.
One of the major changes in Catalonia's street naming history occurred in the 1980s, when many streets named originally in Spanish, particularly those linked to the politics of that era, were replaced or adapted into Catalan. Some Spanish names were distorted or misused, so there was a need to restore and standardise them in favour of the Catalan language.
Sí, el cas de l'1 d'octubre és paradigmàtic.
The most recent major street name added in Catalonia is 1st of October. Currently, 160 municipalities have a street, a square or a road dedicated to the independence referendum date. This shows how street names often mirror the political and social climate of their time.
Després de treballar-hi tants anys,
after working in this field for many years, I've realised that my favourite street names are the ones that are most genuine, those that truly capture the essence of a town and are unique to that place. Many streets are named after famous figures like Pau Casals, and those names appear everywhere. But names like La Baixada dels Safarejos Bells, or The Descent of the Old Washhouses in English, are special because they only exist in that one town, where the street leads down from the old washhouses. These unique names best reflect the character of each place.
Els que reflecteixen més l'essència d'aquell poble.
Thank you to Miquel Parella for those insights. And just before we finish, there are some really curious street names, and we all have places that we're particularly fond of. Guifré, Oriol, what are your favourite street names and why?
There's many streets I really like, but there's especially one, Carrer del Badabadoc, which I discovered doing this. It's in Sant Quirze del Vallès, and it's an old way of saying when someone's very distracted.
So it's Street of the Distracted Person.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Carrer del Badabadoc.
And there's just one Carrer del Badabadoc.
In the whole of Catalonia, possibly in the whole of the world.
Yeah.
Well, that's for sure. That's for sure.
If anyone else has a Carrer Badabadoc in their country, write in and tell us.
Exactly.
And what about you, Guifré?
I'd go for Carrer de Flaçaders in Barcelona's old quarter. And basically, it's an old occupation or an old job, you know, of people who used to make blankets, you know, flaçadas, blankets or bedclothes. And I'm sure it's been called like this informally or formally for over 600 or 700 years, because there's registers of blanket makers working in the area in the 14th century or something like that. So incredible.
And I guess for me, my favourite would not be an official street name, but rather a nickname, an affectionate nickname by the locals, Plaza del Tripi.
Okay. If anyone is not familiar with Tripi, it's like a nickname for drugs in general, I'd say. So it was, at least in the past and maybe a little bit now, a square where people used to take drugs. And funnily enough, the official name, do you know the official name of
George Orwell Square.
Yeah, so it's a bit insane.
Nothing to do between them.
Nah, I don't think so. Let's
I
leave it here.
protect George Orwell here. Well, that's almost all we have time for today. But before we go, it's time for our Catalan phrase of the week. Oriol, what do we have?
We have two related phrases today.
A double Catalan phrase.
A double Catalan phrase before summer. We have anar pel bon camí, which is to do the right thing, to go through the right path, y anar pel pedregar. That could be translated to go to the stony path, to go straight into disaster.
To go astray. You're on the road to ruin.
Exactly.
You're on the slippery slope. This week on Filling the Sink, we've been talking about Catalonia's street names. Thank you to everyone who spoke with us, and thank you to you, Oriol and Guifré, for joining me here in the studio.
Cheers, Beth.
All right, thank you very much.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe to Filling the Sink wherever you get your podcasts if you haven't done so already. We'll be taking a break for the summer, and there won't be any new episodes during the month of August, but we look forward to reconnecting in September. It's been a pleasure hosting you this season, and on behalf of all the team here at Catalan News, I'm Beth Cohen, wishing you a wonderful summer holiday. Fins aviat. Adeu.